I'd always thought my life with Clara was a quiet masterpiece, a canvas painted with steady routines and soft-spoken promises. We'd been married 12 years, settled into a sprawling house on the edge of town, where the oak trees whispered secrets to the wind. I'm Daniel, a man of numbers, 42, an accountant with a penchant for order. My days spent balancing ledgers and my nights cradling a glass of bourbon by the fireplace. Clara, with her chestnut curls and that laugh like a melody, was the chaos to my calm. She ran a boutique downtown, her days filled with fabrics and chatter, her spirit a wildflower I'd never tamed. Started with the phone, not hers but mine. A late Tuesday evening, the screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I answered, expecting a client or a wrong dial, but there was only silence, then a click. Odd, I thought, but I brushed it off. The next night it happened again, and again the night after. By the fourth call, I heard breathing, faint and deliberate, before the line went dead. Clara noticed my furrowed brow, asked what was wrong. Nothing, I lied, sipping my drink. Just a prank, probably. But it gnawed at me. I started watching her more closely, not out of suspicion, not yet, but curiosity. She'd been leaving the house more often, her boutique needing her late into the evenings. She'd come home flushed, her eyes bright, her stories about difficult customers or new shipments spilling out too fast, like she'd rehearsed them. I'd nod, smile, but something felt off. The air between us thickened, a fog I couldn't name. Then came the jacket. I found it in the laundry room, draped over a chair. A man's jacket, leather, worn at the cuffs, not mine. My heart stuttered. I held it up, the scent of cedar and smoke curling into my nostrils. Clara? I called, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. She appeared, her face a mask of calm. Oh, that's from a customer, she said, snatching it away. He left it at the shop. I'm holding it for him. I wanted to believe her. I did. But the calls, the late nights, that jacket, they were threads pulling at the seams of our life. I started digging. Not proud of it, but I did. I checked her phone one night while she showered, the steam seeping under the bathroom door like a ghost. Nothing obvious, no strange names, no late-night texts. But there was an app, tucked away in a folder labeled Work, one I didn't recognize. I opened it, a messaging platform, encrypted, the kind you'd use if you had something to hide. My hands shook as I scrolled. Messages from T. Short, vague, but intimate. Missed you today. Can't wait for tomorrow. My stomach twisted. Who was T? I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof, something solid to hold up against her inevitable denials. So I waited, watched, let the poison of doubt seep deeper. The calls kept coming, always silent, always at night. I began to wonder if they were connected, if someone knew what I didn't, if they were taunting me. Clara carried on, oblivious or pretending to be, her laughter filling the house while I sat in silence, plotting my next move. The days bled into weeks, and I became a shadow of myself, a man obsessed with unraveling the truth. Clara's boutique became my focus. I'd drive by after work, parking across the street, watching through tinted windows as customers flowed in and out. She'd stand behind the counter, her smile radiant, her hands fluttering over silks and cottons. Nothing unusual until he showed up. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a mop of dark hair and a grin that made my fists clench. He didn't browse. He lingered, leaning close to her, their heads bent together like conspirators. I memorized him, the way he moved, the way she lit up when he spoke. His name was Theo. I overheard it when I slipped inside one day, pretending to browse. Theo, you're impossible, Clara teased, swatting his arm. He laughed, a deep, rolling sound that echoed in my skull long after I left. Theo. T. The pieces clicked, sharp and jagged, cutting through my denial. He wasn't a customer. He was something else, something more. I followed him. It was reckless, but I couldn't stop. He drove a beat-up truck, blue paint chipped, to a warehouse on the edge of town. I parked a block away, watched him disappear inside. The place was old, industrial, its windows dark and grimy. What was he doing there? What was she doing with him? I sat there for hours, the bourbon in my flask burning my throat, until he emerged, alone, and drove off. I didn't follow again, not yet. I needed more. Clara noticed my distance. "You're quiet lately," she said one night, her fingers brushing my arm. I flinched, and her eyes narrowed. "Work's been heavy," I muttered, avoiding her gaze. She didn't push, but the air between us crackled with unspoken questions. I started sleeping in the guest room, claiming insomnia, though really I couldn't bear her warmth beside me, not when I pictured her with him. The calls escalated. No more silence. Now there were whispers, fragments of words I couldn't catch, like a voice teasing me from the edge of a dream. I traced one, paid a guy I knew from work who dabbled in tech. It led to a burner phone untraceable beyond that. Someone was playing with me, and I began to suspect Theo. Was he arrogant enough to taunt me? Or was it Clara, testing my limits? I didn't know, but I felt the walls closing in. I bought a camera. Small, discreet, the kind you hide in plain sight. I set it up in the living room, angled toward the door, telling myself it was for security. But I checked the footage daily, obsessively, watching her come and go. One night, she didn't come home until 2 a.m. The camera caught her slipping in, her hair mussed, her blouse untucked. She paused, glanced around, then tiptoed upstairs. My heart pounded as I replayed it, frame by frame, searching for clues. A mark on her neck, a flush on her cheeks. I found nothing concrete, but the suspicion festered. Theo became my ghost. I saw him everywhere, in the shadow of every man who passed, in the curve of every truck on the road. I started tracking his movements, piecing together his life like a puzzle I could destroy once it was complete. He worked at the warehouse, some kind of freelance mechanic, I learned from overheard conversations at a diner he frequented. He lived alone, a small apartment above a hardware store, his truck parked out front most nights. I'd sit there, watching, imagining him with Clara, their hands tangled, their voices low. I broke into his place. It was a Thursday midday when I knew he'd be at the warehouse. The lock was cheap, easily picked with a tool I'd bought online. Inside, it smelled of oil and stale coffee. I rifled through drawers, found receipts, a half-empty bottle of whiskey, a photo of him and Clara, my Clara, smiling at a lake I didn't recognize. My breath caught, rage boiling up so fast I nearly smashed it. Instead, I pocketed it, evidence for the fire building inside me. Clara's lies grew bolder. She'd say she was meeting a supplier, then vanish for hours. I'd call the boutique, hear her assistant stammer that she'd just stepped out. I stopped asking, stopped caring about her excuses. The camera caught more. Late returns, whispered phone calls when she thought I was asleep. One night, I heard her murmur, "Tomorrow then." Before hanging up, I knew it was him. I knew it in my bones. The calls turned menacing. "You're blind," a voice hissed one night, low and distorted. I froze, the phone trembling in my hand. "She's not yours anymore." Click. I didn't sleep, just sat there, replaying it, the words carving into me. Was it Theo? Someone else? I didn't care anymore. I wanted answers, and I'd get them, no matter the cost. I confronted her. Not directly, not yet, but I tested her. "Who's Theo?" I asked over dinner, casual as I could manage. Her fork paused midair, her eyes flicking to mine. "A customer," she said. Too quick, too smooth. "Why?" I shrugged, watching her squirm. "Just heard the name somewhere." She changed the subject, but the tension lingered, a storm brewing between us. I let it drop, but I was done waiting. The warehouse became my next target. I needed to know what tied Theo to that place, what secrets it held. I went at night, the moon a sliver above, my breath fogging in the cold. The back door was unlocked, careless or maybe a trap. Inside, it was a maze of machinery, rusted hulks looming in the dark. I found a desk, papers scattered across it. Invoices, sketches, nothing damning. Then, in a drawer, a notebook. Clara's handwriting stared back at me. Dates, times, notes like T 9 p.m. and D can't know. My knees buckled. It wasn't just an affair. It was planned, deliberate, a life built behind my back. I took the notebook, drove home in a daze. Clara was asleep, or pretending to be, when I slipped in. I sat in the kitchen, the bourbon bottle my only company, flipping through her betrayal. The dates matched her late nights. The times aligned with her absences. D can't know. Me, Daniel, the fool. I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty house. She'd played me and I'd let her. The next day I followed Theo again. He met her at a cafe, not her boutique. A public place, bold and careless. I watched from my car, the photo from his apartment burning a hole in my pocket. They sat close, her hand on his, their laughter cutting through the glass between us. I wanted to storm in, to scream, but I didn't. I waited, let the rage simmer, let it sharpen into something colder, something crueler. The CALS stopped. I didn't know why, but their absence felt like a dare. Prove it, they seemed to say. So I did. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled man named Paul who smelled of cigarettes and regret. I gave him the notebook, the photo, Theo's address. Everything, I said. I want everything. He nodded, no questions, and disappeared into the night. I didn't care what it cost. I needed the truth, raw and unfiltered. Clara sensed the shift. You're different, she said one morning, her voice small. I looked at her, really looked, her nervous hands, her darting eyes. Am I? I replied, sipping my coffee. She didn't answer, just left for the boutique, her steps quick. I smiled to myself. She had no idea what was coming. I'd let her think she was safe, let her dig her own grave deeper. Revenge wasn't loud, I decided. It was quiet, meticulous, a blade honed over time. Paul delivered. 3 days later, he slid a folder across my desk. Photos, recordings, a timeline of Clara and Theo's world. They'd been meeting for months, not just at the cafe or warehouse, but in motels, parks, even our own car when I was at work. The recordings were worse. Her voice, soft and eager, promising him things she'd once promised me. Soon, she'd said, we'll figure it out. Figure what out? Leaving me? Taking what was mine? I listened until I couldn't, until my hands shook so hard I dropped the device. The photos were a gallery of betrayal. Clara laughing, her head on his shoulder. Theo's arm around her waist. One shot, blurry but unmistakable, showed them in an embrace by the lake from the picture I'd found. Paul had dug deeper. Theo wasn't just a mechanic. He'd been a drifter, a man with a past of petty cons, now working odd jobs to stay afloat. Clara was his ticket, I realized. To what, I wasn't sure. Money, stability, a new life. I planned. Not a confrontation, not yet. I wanted her to feel it, to taste the ruin she'd built. I started small, moved money from our joint accounts, little by little, into one she couldn't touch. I canceled her credit cards, citing fraud alerts when she asked. She'd frown, confused, but I'd shrug it off. Banks these days, I'd say, watching her squirm. I wanted her dependent, trapped, before the real blow landed. Theo was next. I found his weakness, his truck, his pride. I paid a kid from the neighborhood, a quiet type with nimble hands, to tamper with it. Nothing drastic, just enough to strand him, to make his life a hassle. I'd drive by, see him cursing at the hood, and feel a flicker of satisfaction. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. I had bigger plans, darker ones, brewing in the back of my mind. Clara grew restless. What's going on with you? She snapped one night, her patience fraying. I looked at her, calm as stone. What's going on with you? I shot back. Her face paled, but she recovered, muttering about stress at the boutique. I let her lie, let her think she'd won. The folder sat locked in my safe, a ticking bomb I'd detonate when the time was right. For now, I watched, waited, and let the cruelty take shape. The game shifted when Paul called me late one night, his voice gravelly over the line. Found something you'll want to see, he said. Meet me at the diner, midnight. I drove through the dark, the folder of evidence heavy on the passenger seat, my mind racing. The diner was nearly empty, just a waitress wiping counters and Paul hunched in a booth, a manila envelope in front of him. He slid it over without a word. Inside were photos, not of Clara and Theo, but of Theo with another woman. Blonde, sharp-featured, caught mid-laugh outside a bar. "Her name's Elise," Paul said. "Theo's been playing both sides." My pulse quickened. 2 women, 2 lives tangled in his web. The photos showed them close. His hand on her back, her lips brushing his ear. I recognized the bar. It was a dive near the warehouse. "How long?" I asked. Paul shrugged. "Months, maybe longer. He's good at keeping them separate." I stared at the blonde, Elise, her face a mirror of Clara's ignorance. Theo wasn't just a drifter, he was a predator, feeding on trust. And I'd used that. I didn't tell Clara. Instead, I watched her unravel. The money moves were hitting her now. Her boutique orders stalled, suppliers calling about unpaid invoices. She'd pace the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, voice tight. "Daniel, did you pay the bills?" She'd ask, her tone accusing. I'd feign confusion. "Thought you handled that." Her eyes would narrow, but she'd drop it, too proud to beg. I liked seeing her flounder, her perfect world cracking under my quiet sabotage. Theo's truck troubles escalated. The kid I'd paid reported back. Brakes tampered, oil drained. Theo was late to jobs, his temper flaring. I'd see him stranded on the roadside, kicking tires, and I'd drive past, a ghost in the rearview. But it wasn't enough. I needed him broken, not just inconvenienced. And Elise, she was the key. If Theo was juggling them, I'd make sure they collided. I tracked her down. Elise worked at a florist's shop, her hands deft with stems and ribbons. I went in, pretending to buy a bouquet, and struck up a conversation. "You look familiar," I said, casual. She smiled, flattered. "Maybe the bar? I'm there sometimes." I nodded, planting the seed. "With a guy in a blue truck?" Her eyes flickered recognition, then wariness. "Sometimes," she admitted. I left it there, paid for the flowers, and walked out, knowing I'd stirred something. Let her wonder. Let her dig. Clara's boutique started faltering. Customers dwindled, her assistant quit, and the rent loomed. She'd come home exhausted, her cheer replaced by a brittle edge. "I don't know what's happening," she said one night, pouring wine with shaky hands. I watched her, silent, the folder's weight a comfort in my mind. "Maybe it's time to scale back," I suggested, my tone neutral. She glared. "It's my life, Daniel." I smiled faintly. Of course. She didn't see the trap closing around her. Theo's life frayed too. Elise must have started asking questions. I saw them argue outside the bar one night, her arms flailing, his face red. I'd parked nearby, sipping bourbon, watching the chaos I'd sparked. She stormed off, and he slammed a fist into his truck's hood. Good. Let him feel the walls closing in. I wondered if Clara knew yet, if she sensed the other woman in his orbit. I'd make sure she did. I sent Elise an anonymous note. Typed, untraceable, slipped under her shop's door. "Ask Theo about Clara. You're not the only one." Short, sharp, a dagger to her pride. I didn't care if she confronted him. I just wanted the fallout. Days later, Paul reported back. Elise had been seen at the warehouse, shouting, tears streaming. Theo looked rattled, pacing, phone in hand. I pictured Clara on the other end, her world tilting. Perfect. The calls returned, but different. No whispers now, just static, then a hang-up. I traced one myself this time, using software I'd bought. Pinged to a payphone near the bar. Theo, I bet, or maybe Elise lashing out. I didn't care who. It fueled me, kept me sharp. Clara noticed my late nights, my distance. "You're never here," she complained. "Work?" I lied, meeting her eyes. She looked away first. Guilty, I thought. Good. I upped the ante. I leaked a rumor through a friend at the bank. Clara's boutique was bankrupt, defaulting on loans. It wasn't true, not yet, but whispers spread fast. Suppliers cut her off, customers vanished. She came home crying one night, mascara streaking her face. "They're saying I'm finished," she sobbed. I handed her a tissue, my face a mask of concern. "We'll figure it out," I said, knowing we wouldn't. Her ruin was my art, and I was just getting started. Elise and Clara met. I didn't plan it, but fate or chaos did. I was tailing Theo, parked near the warehouse, when I saw Clara's car pull up. She stormed inside, her face a thundercloud. Minutes later, Elise arrived, her blonde hair a beacon in the dusk. I rolled down my window, straining to hear. Shouting echoed, Clara's voice, high and furious, then Elise's, sharp and cutting. Theo emerged, arms raised, trying to calm them. They turned on him, a hurricane of betrayal. I smiled, slow and cold. The fallout was immediate. Clara came home silent, her eyes hollow. She didn't speak, just poured wine and stared at the wall. I didn't ask, I knew. Elise had spilled it all, or Clara had, and Theo's house of cards collapsed. I checked the camera later. She'd sat there for hours, unmoving, a statue of regret. I felt no pity. She'd built this, and I'd handed her the hammer to smash it. Theo vanished for days. His truck sat untouched, his apartment dark. I wondered if he'd run, but Paul found him at the bar, drowning in cheap beer. "He's a mess," Paul said, "talking about losing everything." I nodded, satisfied. Let him wallow. But I wasn't done. I mailed Clara the photo from Theo's place, the lake shot, and signed, "No note." It arrived the next day. She opened it at breakfast, her gasp audible. "Where did this come from?" she demanded, waving it at me. I shrugged. "No idea." Her hands trembled. She knew I knew. The boutique closed. Officially, this time. The landlord locked the doors. A sign reading for lease, slapped on the window. Clara didn't fight it. She was too broken, too lost. She stayed home, drifting through the house like a ghost, her phone silent. Theo wasn't calling, I guessed. Elise either. I watched her shrink, her spirit leaching away, and felt a dark thrill. This was revenge. Not loud, not messy, but a slow bleed she couldn't stop. I met Elise again, accidentally, at the florist. Rough week. I asked, buying more flowers. She snorted, bitter. "You have no idea." I nodded, sympathetic. "Heard about a guy in a blue truck. Bad news." Her eyes narrowed, then softened. "Yeah, real bad." I left, planting another seed. Let her hate him. Let it spread. I'd turn his world to ash, one ember at a time, and Clara would burn with him. Clara cracked. It was a Tuesday, rain drumming the roof, when she finally spoke. "I made a mistake," she whispered, standing in the kitchen doorway. I looked up from my coffee, calm as stone. "What kind?" She swallowed, eyes red. "Theo, it's over now." "But it happened." I nodded, slow, like I'd expected it. "How long?" She hesitated. 6 months. 6 months of lies, of her slipping away while I slept beside her. I stood, walked past her without a word. She grabbed my arm. "Daniel, please." I shook her off. "Don't." She didn't know I'd known for weeks, didn't see the web I'd spun. I let her stew, let her think confession might save her. It wouldn't. That night, I moved the last of our savings, her inheritance from her father, tucked in a joint account, into a trust she couldn't access. She'd wake up penniless, her boutique gone, her lover a wreck. I'd leave her with nothing but the house, a hollow shell to haunt. Theo resurfaced, desperate. Paul caught him trying to sell his truck, haggling with a shady dealer. "He's broke," Paul said. Elise cleaned him out, took his cash, trashed his place. I laughed, a rare sound. Good for her. I sent him a package, anonymous, of course. Inside, a copy of Clara's notebook, pages circled where she'd written his name. No note, just the evidence. Let him sweat, wondering who knew who was coming for him. Clara tried to fix us. She cooked dinner, lit candles, her hands fluttering nervously. "We can start over," she said, voice small. I ate in silence, tasting nothing. "Can we?" I asked finally, meeting her eyes. She faltered, tears welling. "I'm sorry." I stood, cleared my plate. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. She sobbed as I left the room, but I felt no pull to comfort her. She'd chosen this. I escalated. I contacted a lawyer, drafted papers, not for divorce, not yet, but to protect what was mine. Everything in my name, the house, the cars, the accounts, locked tight. Clara would have no claim, no escape. I'd let her live in my shadow, dependent, until she begged to leave. And when she did, I'd make sure she had nowhere to go. Theo, Elise, her pride, all ashes by then. This was my symphony, and I'd play it to the end. The endgame began with a phone call. Not the taunting ones, but from Elise. She'd found my number somehow, her voice sharp over the line. You're Clara's husband, right? The flower guy. I paused, cautious. Yeah. She laughed, bitter. Theo's a snake. Thought you should know. She wasn't the only one. I played dumb. What do you mean? She spilled it, his lies, his promises to them both, his plan to fleece Clara for cash. He's trash, she finished. Burn him. I thanked her, hung up, and smiled. Allies, even unwitting ones, were useful. Clara noticed the locks changing. I'd hired a guy to rekey the house, claiming safety concerns. She stood in the hall, arms crossed. Why didn't you tell me? I shrugged. Forgot. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't push. She couldn't, her world was too small now, her options gone. I saw her check her bank app later, her face paling as zeros stared back. Daniel, the money, she started. Glitch, I lied, walking away. She didn't follow. Theo's truck was gone. Repossessed, Paul said, after the dealer backed out. He was on foot now, a drifter again, crashing at the bar when they'd let him. I sent another package, photos this time, him with Elise, him with Clara, a collage of his ruin. I watched him get it, saw him tear it open outside the bar, his face crumpling. He threw it in the gutter, but the damage was done. He knew someone was watching, closing in. Clara stopped fighting. She'd sit on the couch, staring at nothing, her boutique's keys in her lap like relics. I'd walk by, silent, letting her feel the weight. One night, she whispered, I loved him. I stopped, turned. And now, she shook her head. Nothing. I nodded, left her there. Love didn't matter, consequences did. I'd stripped her of everything. Money, purpose, him. She was a husk, and I was the storm that hollowed her out. The final piece fell into place. I met Elise again, this time on purpose. He's done, I said over coffee, casual. She smirked. Good. She's still with you? I nodded. Barely. Elise leaned in. Make her pay too. I didn't answer, but her words lingered. Clara's confession, Theo's collapse, Elise's rage. They fueled me. Revenge wasn't over. It was evolving. A crueler beast than I'd imagined. And I'd feed it until they all choked on it. Elise's words stuck with me. Make her pay too. I'd already stripped Clara bare, but there was room for more, a deeper cut. I started with the house. It was mine, legally, thanks to the lawyer's work, but she still lived in it, clinging to its familiarity. I decided she didn't deserve that comfort. I listed it for sale, quietly, through a friend who wouldn't ask questions. The sign went up one morning while she was out. For sale, bold and red, a stake through her last refuge. She came home, saw it, and froze. Daniel, what's this? Her voice trembled, a mix of fear and fury. I leaned against the counter, sipping coffee. We're moving on, I said flat. You can't, she started, but I cut her off. It's my name on the deed. My call. Her mouth opened, closed, her eyes darting like a trapped animal's. She stormed upstairs, slamming the door, but I heard her sobbing through the walls. Good. Let her feel the ground shift beneath her. Theo was next. He'd hit bottom, sleeping in alleys, begging for shifts at the warehouse. I'd watched him crumble, but I wanted one last twist. I found his sister Lydia, a nurse in the next town, tracked through Paul's contacts. She didn't know me, didn't need to. I sent her a letter, anonymous, with photos. Theo with Clara, Theo with Elise, Theo drunk and broken. Your brother's a mess, I wrote. He needs help or he's finished. I didn't care if she saved him. I just wanted him to know his family saw his shame. Clara tried to fight the sale. She called the realtor, pleaded, but my friend stonewalled her. "Talk to your husband," he said, and she did, cornering me in the garage. "You can't take this from me," she hissed, tears streaking her face. I looked at her, cold. "You took plenty from me." She flinched, stepped back. "I said I was sorry." I laughed, sharp and hollow. "Sorry doesn't buy you a life." She ran inside, defeated, and I knew I'd won this round. The call started again, different now, frantic. "Please stop," a voice begged, male, cracked. Theo, I guessed, though it was hard to tell through the distortion. I didn't answer, just listened, let him unravel. They stopped after a week, replaced by silence. I checked with Paul. Theo had been picked up by Lydia, hauled off to some rehab clinic. She'd seen the photos, confronted him. He was out of my reach now, but not my grasp. I'd planted the seed. His family would finish him. The house sold fast. A young couple, eager and clueless, signed the papers within days. I didn't tell Clara until the movers arrived, their truck rumbling up the drive. She stood in the foyer, pale, clutching a suitcase. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, voice small. I shrugged, handing her a key. To a studio apartment downtown, cheap and cramped, all I'd left her. "Figure it out," I said, walking past. She didn't follow, just watched me load boxes, her world shrinking to nothing. I moved to a condo across town, sleek and modern. A fresh start paid for with her inheritance. She didn't know that part. Didn't need to. The first night there, I sat on the balcony, bourbon in hand, staring at the skyline. No calls, no whispers, just quiet. I dismantled her life piece by piece, and it felt right. Not joy, not peace, but a cold, steady satisfaction, like balancing a ledger after months of chaos. Clara called once, a week later. "I can't do this," she said, her voice raw. "The apartment. It's awful." I leaned back in my chair, calm. "You made your choices," she sobbed, begged. "Please, Daniel, I'll do anything." I hung up, blocked her number. She'd wanted freedom with Theo. Now she had it, raw and empty. I pictured her in that dingy studio, alone, and felt the weight lift a little more. Theo's sister reached out, unexpected. Lydia's voice was crisp, professional. "He's in treatment," she said. "Who sent those pictures?" I played dumb. "No idea. Glad he's getting help." She paused, suspicious, but let it go. "He's a wreck. Keeps talking about some woman, Clara." I smiled to myself. Sounds rough. She hung up, and I knew he'd carry that guilt forever. A scar I'd carved from afar. Elise found me again at the condo. She knocked one evening, uninvited, her blonde hair wild in the wind. "He's gone," she said, smirking. "Rehab, I heard." I nodded, stepping aside. She walked in, surveyed the place. "Nice. She with you?" I shook my head. "On her own now." Elise laughed. Sharp. "Serves her right. Him too." She left without another word. An ally to the end. I locked the door, savoring the silence. Clara's fall deepened. Paul kept tabs. She'd taken a job at a diner, washing dishes, her boutique days a memory. I drove by once, saw her through the window, apron stained, hands red from scrubbing. She didn't see me, didn't need to. Her hair was limp, her shoulders slumped. A shadow of the woman I'd married. I didn't stop, didn't wave. I just watched, let the image sear into me, proof of my work. Theo's rehab didn't last. Lydia called again, furious. "He ran off," she said. "Stole money from me, disappeared." I feigned surprise. "That's tough." She cursed him, hung up. Paul tracked him later, hitchhiking south, a drifter again. No truck, no prospects. I sent one last package to his last known stop. A single photo, him and Clara at the lake, with "Remember" scrawled across it. Let it haunt him wherever he landed. The studio apartment evicted Clara. She'd missed rent, too broke to fight it. I heard through a mutual friend. She was couch surfing now, crashing with strangers, her pride long gone. I didn't care where she ended up, as long as it was nowhere near me. The friend asked if I'd help. "She's your wife," he said. "Was," I corrected, ending the call. "She'd built her ruin. I just lit the match." Elise thrived, a twist I hadn't expected. She'd opened her own shop, flowers and vengeance her fuel. She sent me a card, thanks, and signed with a clipping, Theo's mugshot from a petty theft charge. I framed it, hung it in my office, a quiet trophy. She'd moved on, turned his chaos into her gain. I admired that, in a way. We'd both won, in our own corners of this mess. I settled into my new life. The condo was mine, the money secure, the past a distant echo. No more calls, no more shadows. I'd sleep through the night now, the bourbon a companion, not a crutch. Clara and Theo were ghosts, fading with each day, their lives unraveling while mine stood firm. Revenge wasn't loud. It was this, a quiet triumph, a ledger balanced at last. Clara reached out one final time. A letter slipped under my door, her handwriting shaky. "I'm sorry," it began, a litany of regret and pleas. She was in a shelter now, she wrote, broken alone. Theo a memory she couldn't shake. "I never meant to hurt you," she claimed. I read it once, then burned it in the sink, the ashes swirling down the drain. She didn't deserve my pity, my response. She'd had her chance, and I'd had mine. Theo surfaced again, briefly. Paul sent a photo, him in a jail cell, picked up for vagrancy, his face gaunt, eyes hollow. Lydia had cut him off, the world had too. I didn't send anything this time. He'd gotten the message, loud and clear. His life was a prison now, no walls needed. I filed the photo with the mugshot, a pair of bookends to his collapse. The mutual friend called again, persistent. "She's sick," he said. "Clara needs help." I listened, unmoved. "Not my problem," he argued, pleaded her case. She'd lost weight, coughed constantly, had no one. I cut him off. "She chose that." He hung up, angry, but I felt nothing. She'd built her cage. I just locked the door, let her rot in it. Elise invited me to her shop's opening. I went curious. The place was bright, flowers spilling everywhere, her smile sharp as ever. "To new beginnings," she toasted, clinking my glass. I nodded, sipping. She didn't mention Clara or Theo, didn't need to. We'd both buried them in our way. I left with a bouquet, a rare gesture, and set it on my balcony. A splash of color in my clean, cold world. The past faded. No more letters, no more updates. Clara and Theo were gone. Not dead, but erased from my orbit. I'd walk the condo, the silence a comfort, the bourbon smooth on my tongue. I'd won, not with fists or shouts, but with patience, with precision. Their lives were rubble, mine a fortress. That was enough. That was everything. Months passed, a quiet stretch where the world forgot them, and I let it. Then, a rumor trickled back. Clara in a hospital, some infection from the shelter, too weak to fight it. I didn't visit, didn't call. The friend stopped reaching out, his guilt trip spent. I pictured her there, alone, tubes and beeps her only company, and felt a flicker. Not regret, but closure. She chased Theo, chased a lie, and it led her here. My hands were clean. Theo's trail went cold. Paul guessed he'd drifted south, maybe Mexico, a shadow with no roots. I didn't care to know. His sister had moved on, his name a curse she wouldn't speak. I checked the mugshot sometimes, the lake photo too, a reminder of what I'd undone. He'd been a spark, a threat, now snuffed out by his own flaws and my steady push. Elisa's shop grew. She sent another card, a photo of her with a new guy, solid and steady. "Thanks again," she wrote. I smirked. She'd turned betrayal into bloom, a mirror to my own rebuild. I didn't write back, didn't need to. Our pact was silent, forged in shared ruin. She'd thrived, I'd endured, and that was the end of it. The condo became home. I'd sit on the balcony, city lights sprawling below, and think of the house. The oak trees, the fireplace, Clara's laugh. It felt like another man's life, one I'd shed like old skin. The money was mine, the trust untouchable, my days ordered again. No chaos, no lies. Just me, the numbers, the quiet. Revenge settled into memory. Not a fire, not a storm, but a slow, cruel tide I'd guided. Clara and Theo were footnotes. Their worlds collapsed while mine stood tall. I'd taken everything, her boutique, his pride, their future, and left them with nothing but echoes. The bourbon tasted better now, the ledger balanced, the story closed. I was Daniel, the man who'd won, and that was all that mattered.